você ver melhor, é melhor você colocar o fone de ouvido, Gabriel.
Começando. Hey everyone, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Thiago and I'm here with the amazing Cintia Rodrigues, and she is going to have our closing plenary. Yeah. Cintia is going to talk about leadership, but specifically diverse leadership, a lesbian perspective. And you all know Cintia, but for those who don't know her yet, she is a DOS, a teacher, a Cambridge speaking examiner for 7 idiomas. She holds an MA in Applied Linguistics, a BA in Linguistics, a CELTA and a CPE, and she's also a founding member of Voices SIG. And if you don't know Voices SIG, if you're a woman, you're missing out. Go get to know them because they're amazing. So Cintia, over to you.
Hello. I'm not even gonna see myself. Okay, I'm kind of getting used to this thing here. Well, so you already know my name. My name is Cintia, and I'm going to talk a little bit about diverse leadership. So it's going to be a little bit different from the other talks because although I'm getting to the ELT thing, I'm going to mention lots of things related to leadership. And my talk, well, I would like to first thank Thiago and everybody else for having invited me to close this thing, but also killed them because did not tell me I was going to close it, but that's okay. Let's do it. We can do it. But then it is going to be divided in 4 parts, as I did not include that in my slides. I'm going to tell you here. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about me and my personal life, and then I'm going to contextualize what it is to be a homosexual person in Brazil in the world in 2017. Afterwards, I'll start talking a little bit about leadership, moving on to diverse leadership, and closing it talking about the advantages of having diverse leadership inside of the ELT world. Okay, so I'm going to now share my screen with you as soon as I discover how. How do I do it here?
There is a green icon
Okay.
on your left. Share screen.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is the title of my presentation. So then, as I said before, I was going to start introducing myself a little bit. And I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. It's my professional and my personal life. Basically, because they kind of go together, but it is interesting to go both ways. And as you cannot see me, unfortunately, because I'm much better than my slides, I'm going to show you some pictures. So picture number 1 is this one. So because I am an English teacher and I'm an active member of Prestige, so I love going to conferences and everything else. So this is a photo that was taken in the SIG Symposium now last July here in São Paulo. And in this photo, you can see some of my friends. And here is Ila Coimbra and Claire Venable. The 3 of us plus Nina Lubac and Cecilia Nova, the 5 of us actually, we founded Voices SIG. We started with Voices for Women, but now, about a year later, new branch of it called Voices for LGBTQIA or LGBT+, just to make it faster. And now I have, in this group, it's also Douglas Wolfer, AJ, and Gabriela, who's also here in the picture. Besides that, I'm the DOS at 7 idiomas, and these are some of my colleagues there. And I'm also a volunteer teacher and teacher educator for English to Transform, the project that Renan was talking about in the morning. And it is based inside of Casa which is a place that hosts people LGBT people who've been expelled from their houses. And there are lots of cultural things, including English as a second language. And now Spanish, they're starting Spanish in there as well. As for my personal life, firstly, I'm a lesbian, as you all know, and I'm going to keep on saying the word lesbian over and over again because I realized why I was asking, because I also know that from my group of teachers friends, my teacher group of friends, I'm one of the only lesbians there. And I'm part of two WhatsApp groups, teacher WhatsApp group. And when I started asking them whether there were any other lesbians there, I realized how embarrassed people get when they hear the word lesbian. Hearing the word lesbian is really hard. So I'm going to keep on saying it. So then perhaps by the end of this talk, you might be a little bit more comfortable in saying, I am a lesbian or she's a lesbian, because she's not a gay woman. We are lesbian, please, you know. I'm also hard of hearing, which also gives me another bit of minority because I have some sort of disability. But beside it all, I'm from São Paulo and I'm a very privileged person. And I'll talk a little bit about it later, okay? And as I just said, I am one of the only lesbians in my group of friends, but I want to make sure that, you know, it's not only true. There are lots of diversity in EOT is there, and it's there all the time. And that's why talking about leadership and diversity makes a lot of sense here in our context. So to start, there's this moment on how I started as a coordinator or a DOS. In Brazil, we call it pedagogical coordinator. You know, it started about 3 years ago. I was invited to be the DOS assistant at the school I'm coordinating now. And about 3 weeks later, the coordinator had some issues and she left the school. And then, ta-da, I became the coordinator out of nowhere. And I was like, seriously? How can I possibly do that? But I was filled with fear for many different reasons. The first reason is because I had absolutely no experience in any of this business bit of the school, this leadership ideas or anything. Although I had taken some courses, I had absolutely no experience on that field. And I was actually, my fear came with other different things. There were other it was like a bigger issue that made me fear, made me be afraid of becoming the coordinator of a school. But why did I feel that way? You know, so just again, as I said before, I'm a very privileged person. What does that mean? White skin, middle class. I had access to great schools, which led me to a public university, one of the best universities we have in Brazil. I had the chances of taking loads of courses. I studied abroad, came back to Brazil. So kind of had a good life, right? So why would I fear becoming a coordinator with all of this background? Because before anything, I'm a lesbian, but I'm not any sort of lesbian. I usually call myself as a dyke. What is it to be a dyke? So firstly, to be a dyke is this. In this, we live in a binary world, basically. When you think about life, we have to think of, we always think of yes or no, no or yes, or man and woman. And a dyke is exactly the type of girl that you look at it, her, and you kind of don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. It happens to me all the time. People they never know whether I'm a man or a woman. So they ask me sometime before they come close to me, before they start talking to me. And kids, they're under 5, I'm a boy, and that's it. There's nothing I can do to change that. Because I'm not the girly type of person as we women are expected to be. There's another name for that, which is butch. But that's the butchers are. This is a not nice name to say. It's kind of offensive sometimes. But we could say, I can say it anytime I want, but not everybody else. You know. This is the butch, and I'm showing the butch like another very famous butch here from Orange is the New Black. If you haven't seen, just watch it. It's a great series. And another very famous butch, Ellen DeGeneres. And why am I showing this picture? Because she's with her wife, who is a femme, according to the way we call the lesbian names, we call it. And butches and femmes are usually couples. Because when a butch and a femme become a couple, they kind of follow the pattern we are expected to. So you can see a masculine lesbian and a feminine lesbian becoming a couple. And that's how it should be. Why is that how it should be? Because the word is follow this heteronormativity. And just like Judith Butler would say, As a performative effect of reinterpretive acts, the discursive production of gender naturalizes heterosexuality, insofar as heterosexuality is the proper outcome of normative relations between sex, gender, and sexual desire. By that, what we mean is, what is it to be normal in our society? To be normal is to be a man who fancies woman, or a woman who fancies a man, and together they will have kids, they will create a family, and that's what is expected according to to society. How it is started, it's really hard to say why that's the norm we live nowadays. I would put it back then, back in the past. I would include religion and politics because these two things work together. And there was this need of having more people in society, and then you need to reproduce. So reproduction is important, but I'm not going to get into that because just because I don't know much about it, you know. And the thing is, so say, okay, Cintia, so if there are the femme type of lesbian, why do you want to be the dyke one? Why do you want to look like the masculine type? Because being this lesbian I am today is an identity. It's an identity that actually I walked for a long time before I got there. It was like a long walk. Because, again, citing Judith Butler, but in another book, they say the post-structuralist linguist Judith Butler has extensively debated the issue of whether or not materiality of life is fully constructed, characterized by her theory of performity in relation to aspects of identity, such as gender and sexuality. For Butler, such apparently genetic aspects are always achieved through performative acts, that is, constituting the identity it is purported to be. What does that mean? It means that my identity is, I show my identity through a performance, a performative act. When they talk about these genetic aspects of it, they talk, for example, men are stronger than women, women cry more, men are usually more assertive. These are not true. Those are all characteristics that were constructed by our society and the way we think of it. So since the moment you're born, even when you're not born yet, people keep on building your personality, but consider about taking into account this performativity theory, you know. So some people have already said about, talk a little bit about it, but then that's the point. So that's me. I couldn't change the way I am. And then I was afraid of many different things because once you're dyke, people look at you and they know you're lesbian, that you're the stereotypical type of lesbian. They tend to, you live some little aggressions every single day of your life. Like a simple one I could use an example is that people pointing at me and looking at me everywhere I am. There's someone looking at me, someone pointing at me. If depending on where I am, it goes. It happens more often. Depending on where I am, it doesn't happen that much. But I could give you lots of examples of my life, but I'm not going to get into my life. I'm going to go with news because, men, if you see the news, the world is upside down. That's the first one I'm going to talk. They're all from 2017, okay? This one is from 20th of September. Anger as Brazilian judge backs anti-gay therapy. So in September or August 2017, this beautiful judge decided that there should be a law that protects those who want to undergo anti-gay therapy. But we know this is not a good thing, because if it were, it wouldn't be forbidden now, you know? And we know that most of the people that actually undergo this type of treatment, they're not there because they want to, but because their family want them to, or because their religion does not accept them the way they are. So they try to find solutions to get away from something they can't, you know. 2 months ago, this is from the Garba, 2 months ago, a Brazilian queer art exhibition was cancelled after campaign by right-wing protesters. It is awful. It was in the south of Brazil, and there was this queer museum that was shut because people wouldn't accept it. There was this picture of two kids. They started saying that there was pedophilia and everything. And even the guy who started the museum might now be convicted of pedophilia. Not convicted, but he might be called on trial, and maybe that could happen, and that's bizarre. Then also a few weeks ago, Judith Butler came to Brazil to talk about democracy. Once again, democracy. And she was attacked in Brazil because of her gender theories. And again, she was talking about democracy, and the protests were really interesting because they got lots of people together from different religion and everything. And there were some people burning her as if she was a witch. So yeah, we are getting back in there to, I don't know which year, but the Inquisition moments of life. Interesting, again. This one is not in Brazil. It's the Turkish capital now bans all public LGBTQIA events. It was very interesting that this is the same thing that happens in Russia. In Russia and in Turkey now, you cannot have any sort of LGBT plus advertisements or parties. Gay pride is not allowed, but they do try to have gay pride there, and they are one of the most violent ones we have around the world. So again, gay people losing their rights of being, of existing. And the last and the worst one that was also mentioned by Thiago earlier. Oh no, there's another one before. This exposition about sexuality. This is in MASP, one of the most important museums you have in São Paulo. There is an exposition now called History of Sexuality. And for the first time in 70 years, an exposition was rated. Like there was no, minors could never get inside of it, could not see the exposition, not even with a chaperone. Okay, they just couldn't get in. It's just changed because lots of parents started complaining because they wanted to take their kids to hear and understand more about history of sexuality. And now they can get in as long as they have a chaperone with them. And the last one, now that's the one that Thiago also talks about earlier today. And that's the most shocking one in my point of view, is that a report that shows that more LGBT people killed so far in 2017 than throughout the whole of 2016. This piece of news is from the 12th of August. This means in 8 months, there were more people killed than in 2017 than throughout the whole of 2016. Cool, right? So I think those news, they quite justify my fear of losing students all the time. I was really afraid of new clients getting to the school, and I'm the one that is supposed to run the placement tests, and I kind of have to sell the course a little bit, convince the person to study with us. And I was really afraid of it because I was like, these people are not going to stay there. The moment they look at me, they'll just walk away. They'll simply walk away. And that was the biggest issue I was living when I became the coordinator. I was really, really afraid of it because I lived that before. I had a student who moved out of my class because he didn't want to have classes with me. I have a friend who lost her job because she said she was gay. So she was a lesbian. So you can see that's kind of complicated. So then that's what I usually say. I like this expression. I love saying that I live in the bad condition. What does that mean? It means like she's a lesbian, but her English is fantastic. She knows a lot. She's even studied abroad, But there's always this thing, oh, she's a lesbian. So the first thing they're going to see when they look at me is the fact that I'm a lesbian. Afterwards, they will start to think of the other things I actually am, And one day I was watching this series called, well, you all know probably Game of Thrones. And if you don't, please watch it. It's fantastic. And there is this quote from Ben Stark, because series are also culture, saying nothing someone says before the word but really counts. And this thing actually got to me because I was like, well, that makes sense, I noticed that there are lots of different things happening inside of the school at the same time. And I'm not losing any students. Actually, I am. If I did, because of that, I don't know. because nobody ever told me that. So that might have happened, but I have no idea about it. And there are lots of things, there are other things happening in the world. Like, for example, you got the Ritos having these rainbows series, that in the Rainbows edition, in which they were supporting LGBT rights and gay marriage and everything. You also had Skol, or more specifically Ambev, here in Brazil, that was supporting gay pride. We had this year, you also had Spotify now at the end of the year, showing that, remember I was talking about the gay cure a while ago, and they say that being aware, to think about in 2016, so being aware of the 18,538 people who listened to Born This Way on the same day they started this gay cure chit chat. That's me. On the same day that woman was talking about gay cure, lots of people were listening to this song. So can you see, we're there and all the time, and things are changing somehow. There's this magazine that was on now on the 6th of December talking about having trans people in the corporative world. So they are now hiring people and make sure they're developing this professional to make sure they can stay there for longer. And another news from April 2017 that says, why are companies that hire LGBT people more innovative? Big companies are already global reference in embracing and promoting an egalitarian and prejudice-free environment. I found that very interesting because if you look at those news, they are from this Skol and Doritos. They started this year or last year. I don't remember because at the end of the year I always mix them up. This one I've just shown, the magazine is from December. This one is from April. So can you see the news, they're kind of clashing. We've got bad news and good news happening at the same time. Why? Because every time there is revolution, there's a backlash against the new, and that's what's been happening. And that's when I decided to switch from but to and. I'm not a lesbian but. Actually, it's much better than that because I speak good English. I've studied abroad. I kind of know a lot of things because I love studying and doing things. And I'm a lesbian. And why and I'm a lesbian? Because I realized that lots of things changed also in the school. For example, I started having lots of lesbian students inside of the school. The moment I started, there were no lesbians. After a year, there were about 3 lesbians, and they would go in with their partners, with their girlfriends. They would sit in the couch with the girlfriends, and they would talk to us. They would show they were a couple. So I realized that I was creating a safe environment for LGBT people, not only for the students, but for the teachers as well. Because the moment you get in and you see that your boss, your coordinator is a lesbian, you feel more comfortable. You feel more comfortable because you're safe. If somebody says something, if somebody has any sort of prejudice, this person will be affecting me as well. And there were so many other examples. I could go on and on telling them, but I don't have that time. So that's why I'm going to get into this diverse leadership. And I really like this picture. All of my pictures are from Google because I don't know how to do it anywhere else. But the thing is, this is a nice picture because it shows exactly people from different colors and different styles. They have different shapes, but together they create a different unit. And their speech gets stronger. It makes much more sense together, as you can see. But before I get into leadership, a diverse leadership, I need to talk a little bit about leadership. So just going from business dictionary, what is leadership? True here. Leadership is the act of leading a group of people or an organization, or the ability to do this. Leadership involves establishing a clear vision, sharing that vision with others so that they will follow willingly, providing the information, knowledge, and methods to realize that vision, to the end, coordinating and balancing the conflicting interests of all members of stakeholders. A leader steps up in times of crisis and is able to think and act creatively in difficult situations. Not easy, right? But that's what we are. That's what we do when we're talking about leadership. Then another point we need to clarify before we go on is the difference between a boss and a leader. And again, if you look at this picture, you can see the position of the boss here and the position of the leader. A boss is usually on the top. The boss tells you do. A leader is among the group of employees, and they work together towards a goal. So each one of them's got a role here. All of the roles are important, and together they get there. So a leader leads, they don't tell you what to do. Okay, so a leader doesn't shout at you. A boss can shout at you. But these are some of the differences. But moving on, let's go back to the past before we're talking about the present and perhaps the future, because in my point of view, diverse leadership is actually the future. It's still not the present. In the past, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about traditional Western models. What are traditional Western models? They are models that were studied and researched in the United States or Europe, mainly with white people. They totally disregard countries under development or the Eastern world completely, okay? There you're talking about having a boss, because being the leader is being the boss, being aggressive sometimes. Shouting is good, because if you show power, people listen to you, you know? They were mostly white men. Leadership was thought to be the province of males. I love this quote, you know, because it makes sense. It is true. It was thought to be the province of males, so only a man could be leader. But not only males, white males. That's really important to focus on the white bit of it. Another thing about leadership is that at that moment, we're talking about the vertical or tall leadership. This is a good picture that would exemplify it a little bit. First of all, can you see there's one person here, lots of people here. And it changes layer by layer, there are more people. And one interesting thing is how things work. It goes different, the message changes a lot from one layer to the next. Like giving a short example so then you can understand a little bit better, and using our context to help. Let's pretend this boss here, the owner of a school, knows that she's living a huge crisis moment, and she's probably she knows she's going to shut the school, okay? And then she can see only one option for that, which is actually selling the school. If she doesn't sell the school, she'll have to shut it, all right? And then she comes to her first subordinates here, which are probably the directors or the people in the management position. They are going to hear something much more like, okay, we are living in a big bad moment, as you already know. And there's something that we need to take into account, that there is a chance the school will shut, okay? So there will be some people coming here, there'll be some buyers coming to check the school out. So we need to make sure the school is well organized, that all of the system, all of the numbers in the system, everything's perfectly organized, that the classrooms are beautiful enough, that we can take off all of the chairs, the bed desks and everything, so it can feel more attractive for the buyers. Because in case we close the school, we need to close the school, there is someone interested in it. So, okay, one piece of information was missed, all right? Now, these two people will come to this tree and say, okay, oh yeah, but you're gonna say the rest, that they cannot know that they are buyers, okay? So they're gonna say that perhaps some people will come to the school to inspect, to check whether they are doing a good job, if everything is organized according to the patterns of the company and everything else. So they need to make sure everything is beautiful and everything is well connected. So then these people will pass this information here and tell them to, and they will divide into small groups and say, okay, so you are supposed to do this, this, and that to make sure the school is beautiful because you'll be inspected and everything. These other people here will just do they'll be the ones actually teaching, organizing the classrooms, cleaning the school, painting everything, making sure everything is perfect. So then the inspection can come, everything will be okay, but they have no idea the school is about to close. Because at this moment, they cannot know, because if they do know that, they might just stop working properly and just give up because they'll be fired anyways, you know? So that's the point. So that's how vertical leadership works. I'm going to give the same example later on when I'm talking about a different type of leadership, okay? And then lastly, This type of leadership is a personality-based leadership. What is that? That goes for trait theory or the great man theory. Another fantastic name these people give, great man theory. Why is that the great man theory? Because according to the personality-based leadership or the trait theory, at its core, trait theory of leadership thrives on the assumption that extraordinary personal attributes, abilities, skills, and physical characteristics are the markers of leadership. By that, what I mean is you were born to be a leader. Leaders are born leaders. There's no way you cannot develop these leadership skills. You're born with them. So you're either a leader or not. You know, there's no halfway through that. And what are these characteristics? I'm showing the 5 of them. First one is intelligence. You have to be intelligent because the leader is a problem solver. You don't have much time to think. It doesn't matter whether you're a boss or a leader, whatever you are. People come to you, they ask you a question, and they expect you to answer immediately. You know, so this means you must also have self-confidence because you need to solve it immediately and make sure people trust you. Because if you are insecure, you cannot actually get people to do the things you want them to. A leader must have determination. That's the goal-driven person. Is the person that thinks ahead of time. So I have a goal and I have to get there. So which are the steps I need to follow to reach my goals? So, and I'm going to do everything I can, even if I have to work 24 hours a day, I will. That's determination. That's being the boss, a leader, you know? Integrity, which some people might argue that's not exactly what happens sometimes, but integrity is related to values. So it means you have your own values and the company's value, and you follow it to its core. You know, you don't change, you value things, you know? And lastly, sociability or charisma. I'm having problems with this word, charisma. You have to be a charismatic person because if you're not charismatic, people won't like you. If they won't like you, they won't make business with you, or you might, you know, charisma sometimes is everything. I think this is the bit I lack the most. But, and anyways, so that's what the trait theory is all about. So you need to have these 5 things, otherwise you can't be a good leader. But as we know, and we all know, the world is changing, and it's changing very fast. In these past years, there are lots of changes going on. As I said, even the news are confused, you know, and lots of technology and everything going on. But I'm going to mention one big change that tells us everything about this new world we're living in. And that's the one. Hello, I'm a millennial. Millennials are the largest generation. They are from the 1980s to the early 2000s. There is a new generation they've been talking about now. They start in the late 70s and go up to early 80s, which are the Millennials. But I'm not going to get into that because there's just some differences from this group and the Millennials. And the truth is, most of the people who are probably watching me now are millennials. I am a millennial. Most of the people that work for me are millennials. Most of my students are millennials. So if people are still saying bad things about millennial, it's now time for them to actually try and understand what a millennial is, because that's our time. That's our moment. So people have to adjust to what we are because we are different from the other for many different reasons. Reason one, we focus on large societal needs rather than individual needs. So we're thinking of the environment, we're thinking of animals, we're thinking of poverty, we're thinking of Africa, we're thinking of everything, not only our lives and our own selves. Although they do think we are individualistic people, we are not that much. The millennials are the most ethically and racial diverse generation in the USA. As I got this article from the USA, I kept the USA in there because, as they say, 43% of American people now consider themselves as mixed race. And by ethically, they are talking about by ethically diverse. Is that what they mean is the things I've just said. They care about lots of different things, and not only about their own selves, but about the world as a whole. And that leads to another point, because they don't trust brands differently from the previous generation. The millennials are not a fan brand. So they tend to buy things according to what people tell them to. So, for example, my phone was stolen this year, and I had another one that I loved. But then when I decided to buy a new phone, I had to think a lot of different things, like my money, the amount of money I had, my needs on a phone. And then I started researching on YouTube, like watching YouTubers. Then I started asking people about phones. I went to many shops and I looked for different phones, and then I could finally choose mine. But another very important thing about brands is that if they're not ethically diverse as well, we tend to boycott them all. For example, if I'm not vegetarian, okay, but if I go to a restaurant with a friend of mine who is a vegetarian, and I realize that that place does not think of vegetarian people, I might never go back in there just because they're not thinking of everyone. So why would I go there? You know? Something very important about millennials that they want their employers to respect their individual differences and embrace the potential that each unique quality can bring. What I mean here is this is really important because they say we are individualistic. It's not that we're individualistic, but we know who we really want to know who we are, and we know that we are different from the others. And what is different in me makes me unique. And this might help people with them together, with all of these uniquenesses together, we might form something bigger. And another important point is we want to change the world, and we know it's not going to be easy, but we are going to have to plan to get there. This is the millennials' goal. Everybody wants to change the world, and they're always thinking together, how can we do that? How can we do that? I don't know if we will ever get there, but we are trying to at least, you know. So these are the millennials. So that's why am I talking about the millennials? Well, again, this the consequence of having millennials now as the consumers and people who are actually what's happening mostly in the world is that now companies that are gender diverse are 15% more likely to outperform those who aren't. And even worse than that, persons that are ethnically diverse, ethnic and gender diverse, are 35% more likely to outperform the others. It means diverse is important nowadays. If your company is still trying to follow the normality, the norm, you will lose. And you will lose clients and you lose money. So that's why it is time to change. And that's what brings the importance of diverse leadership, because diverse leadership is about including minorities in leading positions. Who are the minorities I'm talking about? Every sort of minority. I'm talking about minorities in general, not only LGBTQIA. I'm talking about women, Afro-descendant, overweight people, people with disabilities, elderly people, depending on the position and everything. We have space for everyone, you know? And why is that important? It is important because diversity recognizes differences. Working with people who are different from you may challenge your brain to overcome its stale ways of thinking and sharpen its performance. Uh, Throughout the day, I've heard a few questions like, what if you cannot do that inside of the school? Or do you feel comfortable doing it? Why we don't talk to students about LGBT plus issues? Are we afraid of the school? Yes, we are afraid of our leaders. We are afraid of that because, and the moment you have, but having diversity inside of leadership that might lead to change, because the truth is, if you think of yourself every day, for example, when you take a shower, imagine yourself taking a shower and think of the sequence you go through while you're taking a shower. I'm almost sure that everybody follows the exact same sequence every single day, every single shower you take. And why do we do that? Because we have to, basically. That's the truth. We have to do it because our brain is there. We always do the same thing, same way all the time. So if you don't, so having different personalities around you helps you change and go beyond and broaden your mind. somehow. How you can do it? Only by recruitment. Start recruiting people and invest on professional development programs to make sure these people will stay there and they will go up the ladder. They'll go up the ladder because most of the time there is recruitment for minority. They are there, but they don't go up the ladder, and that's the problem we have nowadays. So now let's see what leadership is like nowadays. Step number one, it is still mostly white men in C-level positions. By C-levels, I'm talking about the CEO levels, the chief position, the chairman, you know, so being the head at the top of the company. But it's changing a little bit because millennials, I don't know why I'm saying millennials lately. Millennials, we're getting there now. We're young. We're still getting there. Now we're not talking about the boss, we're talking about a leader. If you come to a millennial and you shout at them, they walk away and they simply don't come back. They won't accept boss shouting at them. Now we're talking about horizontal leadership, not the vertical one. And this is very interesting because horizontal leadership might be defined as persuading others over whom you have absolutely no direct control to join you in a common cause. And that would be a picture of an example of a picture of a horizontal leadership. But again, if you remember that example of the school that is shutting down, if you think of a school that is shutting down, you can say one thing. And you can say one thing that probably the one first thing you can say is that the boss knows the school is shutting down now. The owner of the school knows it. And they will start, basically what they will do is, instead of just telling someone blind to the next person, they might call the whole group and let everybody know what's happening in the school. And the only choice they have is actually selling it. So they need to sell the school to make sure everybody's going to have their jobs. Okay. So together, so people need to trust them because they need to persuade all of these employees to work together to make sure the school will be sold and they will all keep their jobs. So that's the common cause. And that's what happens. So everything is clarified to everyone. And then we can discuss together and see the different ideas and see how we can get there. Lastly, trade theory is no longer enough. Now you need more. What else matters now? I got this one from Forbes magazine. They give only 3 reasons, but I'm going to give you 4. The first one is awareness and acceptance of your limitation and privileges. What does that mean? It means that you have to know who you are, where you can step, the things you accept, and your privileges in order to embrace the others. If you don't know who you are, and if you don't understand your limitations, your privileges, you cannot help the others. You have to be out of the closet at all instances. As Nick Harvey says, every great person must come out. As difficult as it is, you must tell your immediate family, you must tell your relatives, you must tell your friends, if indeed they are your friends. You must tell the people you work with, you must tell the people in stores you shop in, and most importantly, you shall never go back to the closet. Never ever accept when someone tells you to be discreet. When someone tells you that that's okay, you're lesbian, but you cannot show it here. Don't go back to the closet. If you go back to the closet, you're not going to help those who work with you. You're just holding hands with the oppressor and walking with them. You're not changing anything. You must have a very detailed eye for differences and individualities. It is when we give that we get. Giving is not just about giving money. Give value, give time, give attention, give support, give love, give. Why? I mean, what do I mean by give? Listen, if someone comes to you with an issue, with a problem, give them first attention, listen to them. They're not the same as you. So the way they're going to solve the problem is not the same way as you would do. So then you have to give them time to think. You have to give value what they're telling you. You have to give support. That's how you're leading inside of diversity. And this is the one I like the least, when I say that do your best at everything you want to do. It is awful to say that, but we have to agree to one thing. Once you're part of a minority group, you're not supposed to fail. We cannot fail. Everybody can fail. We cannot fail because otherwise we get back to that but, and the but disappears, as you can see, and you're just like lesbian basically. And what they say, be a leader and add so much value that your colleagues and society see you more for the value you add, the skills you use, and the qualities you have, and less for what makes you different from them. Really, I don't like this because we fail and we should be allowed to fail. But at this moment, we still are not that allowed to fail. So study hard, learn what you're going to talk about, and do the best. Be your best all the time. Why and how can we think of leadership in the ELT? I'm getting behind schedule, but that's okay. Leadership in ELT. First of all, I'm going to mention regular schools. When I'm talking about regular schools, I'm talking about Brazilian regular schools, more specifically, okay, because that's my context. It is very common for, well, first of all, I cannot recall a diverse leadership in any regular schools, but maybe that does exist, I just don't know. But something interesting that happens there is that parents are the clients nowadays, most of the time. So it means that they have the voice, they are the bosses. So they go into the school and they decide whether a teacher is going to be there or not. And we live in a religious country, and this is true. So once you live in a religious country, being a LGBT teacher might be a problem. And that's why leadership there is important, because having a leader that is able to talk about these issues, they might actually soften this side and not lose this teacher, you know? Take this, the qualities of this teacher must be more important than his sexuality, his or her sexuality, you know? Also, because we have to deal with diversity inside of schools, as they have mentioned a lot. So I don't have to go any further in that. But you know that diversity is everywhere, and just as Gabriela just said, we don't talk about it. I'm hard of hearing, and I never talk about anyone. I never tell that to anyone. Nowadays I do, and I even make fun of it. But it took me a long time to actually talk about it. So people don't say anything. So we need to observe, have detailed eyes, as I said before, and help teachers and parents and everyone how to deal with diversity. Again, also another topic are the publishers. We know that most of the publishers are run by white men, and they tend to be very conservative because their consumers are very conservative as well, because they were going to sell books for those regular schools I just mentioned before, and they're afraid of not selling their books, so they tend to not allow the course book writers to make sure there'll be representativeness in materials. And so that diverse leadership, again, inside of the publish might change this the situation, and inside of a school might help teachers to notice that and develop new materials or adapt those they have. Then moving on to language schools, they are the most diverse place we can think about. But then there's one thing I'd like to mention there, which are the inclusive facilities. Here, I'm not talking about LGBT, I'm talking about people with disabilities more specifically. And I would like you to think about the school you work for and tell me one thing. Would a person on wheelchair be able to get inside of the school you work for? Would a person with eyesight problem, disability, be able to be a student there? What about a person with hearing disability or impairment? How would that happen? You know, having diverse leadership changes this a little bit as well, because when we're observing lessons, when you're looking at the space we have, we don't think of ourselves only. We have a much broader eye, because we know the things we suffer, and we know that nobody's going to talk about it. I spent most of my life not telling anyone I was hard of hearing and suffering because of that, but I wanted to fit. I wanted to be normal, just like the other. To the day I realized I'm not that person, you know, so I have to tell that to people. And my life is so much easier now that I can do it. And the last thing is that a diverse leadership can make sure everyone can truly be. And when I mean truly be, I'm really talking about truly being what you are and not having to hide it from anyone. As I said before, you should never be inside of the closet, and you should never, you should make sure you never get back to the closet. But this year, in the beginning of this year, I was not a teacher for English to Transform. I used to be only the teacher educator. I started teaching with them this term, and it was very interesting because I was not a teacher, but a teacher was ill. I think there was a teacher that was ill, and he needed replacement. And I was free at that time. I said, okay, I could go there and teach for you. And according to the lesson plan, I was supposed to start with a true or false game about the students, but I didn't know the students, so I made a true or false game about myself. And I was so happy I could write the things I wrote. Have a look at that. What made me feel happy? If you look at these 4 sentences, I'm sorry about my handwriting, this is terrible, but I'm sure you can read it. So I'm 27 years old. I'm from Piracicaba. I play the drums. I have 2 brothers. I have the most beautiful girlfriend in the world. I'm a teacher and a journalist. For the first time, I've been teaching for almost 14 years now. For the first time in my life, I was able to put such a sentence talking about a girlfriend I used to have on the board without being afraid of being fired, of losing students. So that's what I'm saying. If the leadership is diverse, there's diversity inside of leadership, we can make sure that we are safe in our environment. I'm sure that if a teacher inside of my school writes such a sentence on the board and a parent gets bothered because of that, I would sit with this parent and I would talk to this person. I won't actually repress the teacher for being able to talk about his life normally, just like everybody does. Any heterosexual person says, I have a girlfriend, I have a boyfriend. We cannot do that. We have to use the word partner. Come on, partner. She was not my partner. She was my girlfriend. And you know what the most interesting thing was? Is that everybody said the sentence was false. It was true at the moment. It's at that moment. It is false at this moment. But everybody said that it was false, not because of the girlfriend bit, but they were annoyed because I said she was the most beautiful girlfriend. And they said, yeah, you might have a girlfriend, but she cannot be the most beautiful one, right? That was what they were worried about. Interesting, right? So yeah, it's time to change the scenario. And diverse leadership is a way to get there. That's it. Here's a little bit of the references. I can send it to all of you. I, of course, haven't read all of the things. So the news I got and all of the articles I used to get some of the information I had to put in this 52-minute talk because I went beyond my time. But anyways, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. They certainly did. We all did.
Como é que eu faço para descompartilhar?
Sorry?
Oh no, I'm back.
Yeah,
I was trying to get back.
Now you're back.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if we have questions from the audience. So we have lots of comments. Congrats. Very interesting talk. Amazing. Does anyone have any questions? Let's see if questions pop up.
Hopefully not. Never know. Hopefully we're able to ask us, right?
No, I'm sure they have questions. There is a slight delay, so it's always a good idea to wait for a second. Yes, there is a question. A question from Luciana, and Luciana is asking you: have you ever had to deal with parents, with prejudiced parents?
Oh, fortunately, well, inside of the school I work at, no, never. I was actually quite lucky there, perhaps. That's one of the reasons I said that I switched from the but to the end, because there are lots of religious people there, right? Like they cannot even participate in Halloween parties or Easter or anything, but still they like me. They don't care, and they know everybody knows I'm a lesbian there, because when you're in a relationship, things come and people start talking about your girlfriend and everything. So it was open. I think everybody knows. And I never had any sort of issues, not that I know, at least. You know.
All right.
So luckily, no. Did leave some other issues that I don't think I should mention now, but I did refuse a job because I was not supposed to hire any homosexual LGBT person to work there. So it was really bad. I felt really bad about that. Yeah.
Sounds like a
not too long
contradiction,
ago.
right?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Let's see. Thank you. So I don't think we have any other questions.
Yeah,
all right. So, Cintia, thank you very much for closing our event. It was really good. And for those of you who want some references, I'm sure Cintia is going to be glad to give them to you. Just email her or talk to her on Facebook. She's super approachable. And do get to know voices, because our industry is still harder for women. And
but just one very important thing: voices is not just for women. Voices started as voices as one group with only women, and at that moment we knew it was necessary, because we have to think about what we are able to talk about, and that was the one thing we had in common, that being a woman, being women actually. But we are not. But the idea for voices is to have many smaller branches of it. So like now we have voices for women and voices for LGBT.
So
we also want to
has that already been approved, Voices for LGBT?
Yeah, because
that's
it's not
wonderful.
a SIG, because it's part of the SIG. You know, there is one bigger SIG called Voices. And inside of Voices, we're having smaller groups. One is Voice for Women, now Voice for LGBT. And we are getting people together to create voices for special needs, mental health perhaps, and other things. So that's what Voices is a bigger thing, you know. Voices for Women is just the beginning of it, but we're moving on to much more now.
Okay, so Voices for Women, Voices for LGBT, and in the future, Voices for special needs, special education. So get to know them, because their job is very good. It's amazing. I'm sure you'll love it. And I think we as minorities should really stick together, because together, it's like Narcisso's slogan that applies to so many situations. Together, we really are stronger. And hopefully our event today was also about that, about showing people that they're not alone. As Gabriela Frois mentioned in her talk, sometimes, and also Natalia during our Brawl chat, sometimes we don't have a support system, but there are thousands of people online that are more than willing to help you with issues and any questions you might have. So let's get together and keep the conversation going. Thank you all very much for coming, and I'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.